That was like his life, right?
Okay. Okay, everybody, let's get started here. Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, August 8th. We are recording, and if you're recording, please let us know. And if you could silence your cell phones, it'd be appreciated. First, we have the public meeting. Public meeting, appointments of officers.
Actually, that's 7 here today, too.
Now we got everyone.
Look at
here.
that.
Alright.
Look at that.
Somebody wrote a date.
Wait. Ready?
What?
Wait a bit.
Any thoughts? Anybody want my job?
Andy,
You're doing a great job.
Andy, if you're game,
Yeah, it is.
if you're game to stay in the seat, we'd love to have you. I think
to appoint you.
I speak for myself on that.
Okay, so I guess, does any type of vote have to be taken for any of this?
It's unanimous.
Yeah, someone needs to make a motion.
I did.
Someone can make a motion
Just
to.
did.
Twice.
Second.
I did.
Great. All those in favor?
Any
Any opposed? No, I guess that's unanimous.
Nice one.
Great, okay. Vice chair.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Ashley. Ashley is still happy being the vice chair? You do a great job. I nominate Ashley. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Congratulations.
No surprises there.
Okay.
This is where we should say nobody is secretary who's going to take minutes and then we'll watch everyone.
We have the best minute taker now.
That's always the hardest one for her to do.
We have the best minute taker.
Don't rock the boat, Terry.
We're covered here? Okay. Now we're going on to public comment for items not being heard tonight. Anybody have any issues you want to bring up? Not on the agenda? Good. Could you please come up and give your name, please?
Sure. My name is George Levenstein.
Okay.
My name is Scott Martin. I'm a resident in Nantucket. I live at 12 Brant Point Road. My property abuts 10 Brant Point Road on the south side of the property. The property applied to the Concom in March, I believe, for work being done on the opposite side of their house, the north side, to do a new build garage. Recently, they also did a minor addition on the south side. Recently, the landscaper doing the work there has been dumping multiple truckloads of fill on the property and spreading it on areas that were unaffected by the construction. So as I read, and you guys are the experts on it, but as I read sections 2.10B1 and 3.04B6, given that we're in that region of flood zone, it sounds like they're raising the grade, and I don't think they should be. There may be some compaction there, but it's minor, and so they're putting fill right on top of the compaction. I brought that to their attention today. Jeff was nice enough to explain to me how the process works. Mr. Bracken shoots the property shoots it post, and if there's any elevation changes, then we deal with it. I don't know if there's any, and so I wanted to just make sure you guys were aware of it, and I appreciate the opportunity to highlight this to you. I don't know if there's any margin for error when you do that shooting. If there is, I guess we won't know if there's a shift until there's a flood and it could come onto my property. So I'd like some guidance on how I should deal with that if that occurs. And the second thing is I would just ask the board to consider in their guidelines in the future a way or a process in which the field can intervene if they know a clear violation is taking place in real time. I think I've got pictures pre and post, videos of and I hate to do this, but I've got of them doing this today, and I think it's fairly egregious what they're doing, and I just want to point it out to you, and I appreciate the opportunity to point it out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Should we get those?
I'll speak for the record, I guess. Jeff did call the office. So I'll go out there tomorrow and take a look at it and, see what's going on and send the client a note or an email, copy Jeff, and let them know what's going on and that if they're not outside the scope of the permit, And obviously, they either have to stop and come back to get approval for whatever they are doing out there, I haven't seen it yet, so we'll start addressing it tomorrow, keep Jeff moving.
Yeah, so we spoke with the property owners today too.
Oh, you did? Oh,
As well,
okay, yeah.
on site, and they're under the understanding that the plan of record shows the existing contours that were on the site, and those contours were permitted to remain and not be altered, so they understand that at some point in the near future, Don's essentially gonna be relooking at that, and if the contours don't match the original contours, that the site will have to be essentially reshaped to match the original contour that was on the site, which is typical with any flood zone project. So I'm hoping to have that addressed pretty quickly, just to make sure that everything is good. We've also reached out to the contractor who is doing the construction to provide any information that they have as far as what they did for any site prep, what went through, whether they stripped areas or didn't strip areas, if they can provide photos, and then kind of rebuild what happened, add that with current topographic data from Brandon's office, and then move forward to make sure that the site is in compliance. I'll be the first to say, and I said it to everyone in the field, none of our agents have the ability to necessarily go out and look at the ground directly, and unless it's directly abutting somewhere where the elevation's coming in to visibly, I can't see the difference between elevation 3.5 and elevation 4 in the middle of an area that's been reworked. I just can't physically do it. That's why we engage the surveyor, engineer of record to say, please get us some topographic data to know exactly where we're dealing with, so that way if sod is going on or something else is going to go in that's going to elevate that some, that they can make those adjustments in advance before they get too far and are dealing with an enforcement situation to make sure that they're in compliance. So I think everyone's well aware of that.
Everybody knows
makes
now,
sense.
so, yeah.
And wants to get to the point where everyone's in compliance.
I'll be able to tell tomorrow in case
Great.
if there's any change, and I'll let them know.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, any other items? Okay, see not, we'll go on to the public hearing. We have a few continuances. Sconces Beach Preservation Fund, 59-119 Baxter Road, continued to August 22nd. Crooked Lane LLC 1 Westchester Street Extension, continued until September 5th. Crichton House Holdings LLC 133 Pulpus Road, continued to August 22nd. Paul J. Brody 11 East Street, continued until August 22nd. So we're going to start with Nantucket Land Council, Nantucket Harbor.
1 second, really quickly, before we get too far, I'm sorry to interrupt, Emily. The Sconces Beach Preservation Fund that's continued to 8/22/2018, I just want to put it out there again. That hearing is scheduled as part of our regular meeting, and that hearing is not going to be a accepting testimony hearing, is the way to put it. That is just we're going over the schedule going forward for the special meetings outside of that. Just wanted to say that for people here that may be coming to that and wanted to bring an expert in or bring someone, that is not the meeting to do that at, but that schedule will be set at the regular meeting on the 22nd.
Talking about SPPF?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Emily Molden of the Nantucket Land Council. I am here before you again after our first hearing 2 weeks ago. We were waiting for sign off from Mass Natural Heritage, which we received. The project is exempt because it's a habitat enhancement project. And I also received our letter from the Division of Marine Fisheries saying that they have no resource concerns with the project as well. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions if anybody has any, but I didn't really have anything else to present otherwise.
Okay. Looks like we have everything we need to close.
We do at this point.
And you're ready to close?
I am.
Have a motion?
Move to close.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
So 3 Gully Road LLC, 7 Gully Road.
Sorry, I haven't heard it.
It is confusing. But Mr. Dale is here to answer those kinds of questions. David Haynes and attorney Kevin Dale for the applicant. What we're proposing here is a single-family house, 3-bedroom house with septic system, garage, and landscaping at 3, is it 3 Scully Road or 7?
No, 7.
7
Gully Road.
Excuse me. And we had a determination of applicability on this property last year in July. The resource areas out there, there's a coastal dune field under jurisdiction of the Conservation, Nantucket Cut Wetland bylaw. There is a 100-year flood elevation by topography, by survey, was determined at that time. It's this 10-foot contour right here. The FEMA map does, because it was done by photogrammetry, it does have it up in here. However, this is actually the land subject to coastal storm flowage. This is FEMA jurisdiction, so the house still has to conform to the flooding unless they want to go in and get it changed. There is a steep embankment back here called the Sconces Bluff, and it was determined not to be a coastal bank, as in other sections of Codfish Park and beyond are not, because of the 100-year flood elevation. This is a fairly flat area in here before it gets steep. The 100-year flood elevation does not intersect the steep slope. The coastal dune field does not intersect the slope, and so it was ruled not to be a coastal bank. So the resource areas we're working in the buffer zone. The land subject to coastal storm flowage comes slightly onto the property here. It is within a landscaped area. The septic system is outside of the buffer zone. The buffer zone runs through the property diagonally like so. This is the buffer zone. This is the 50-foot setback. All structures are outside of the 50-foot setback. Silt fence is proposed at the property line to establish a limit of work to make sure nobody goes beyond that. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Questions?
Just maybe the erosion rate here, it seems to be
We're
gaining ground.
Yeah, it's gone back and forth.
Yeah.
Historically, it's been, I don't know what it's been.
Right.
But it's a long way out, actually. It actually, in the no-name storm and Hurricane Bob, you lost a bunch of houses in there, and then it built back up. It does go back and forth, but it is still a long ways from, we're outside of 100 feet from it. And there's another house out here. There's a house, or maybe out there.
Right.
That's what I thought. Okay. No questions? Okay, any questions from the public? Okay. Jeff, we have everything we need?
We do.
That's where we close?
You were. Sure.
Sure.
Motion to close.
Second?
All in favor? Any opposed?
You look a little nonplussed. You never did explain the 3 versus 7.
Will you do the next one?
Juliet Hunter, 97 Sankaty Road.
Again, David Haynes for the applicant. And then I'll stop bothering you. This is a request, or it's a notice of intent to construct a swimming pool, and portions of which are in the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. This is on Sankaty Road. Baxter Road is over here. This is a long sliver of wetland. that's, we've beaten to death over the years, goes over here. And it is a bordering vegetated wetland. We have delineated it with numbered flags. The shrub line is also shown on here, the existing shrub line. The proposed pool is half in and out of the buffer zone. It's well outside of 50 feet. We have a fence around it. The water table is down at least 13 and a half feet below grade, and the pool is 8 feet deep, so we do not need a waiver for dewatering or separation of the water table. The swimming pool will have a salt canister filter, so there will be no backwash, there will be no discharge into the buffer zone. And basically it will be at grade. Any excess material will be either removed from the site or disposed of outside of the buffer zone. There is a siltation fence shown at the limit of work, outside of 50 and outside of the shrub line. So all the work is occurring within existing lawn.
And are you guys planning to keep the existing shrub line as it is?
Yes, no alterations proposed. That's the silt fence that you see on there. The fence for the pool is immediately off the...
Is the pool equipment contained within a structure, or is it just fence?
Just a fence. And there will be some, landscaping, some coping and stone decking around it. And there is a cabana for the pool equipment. There's a cabana proposed for that as well. Again, that's all outside of 50.
So any discharge would almost inevitably go into one of the wetlands.
Well, it would be, any discharge would be pumped outside of the buffer zone. There's a whole strip, there's a good area outside between the road and the buffer zone where any water can be discharged, but it's not aimed at the wetland. It's not in the buffer zone. And since it's a canister system, there is no back flushing.
Right.
So that, you just take the canister out and replace the canister. Not like
Just for clarification, for
cement
me,
pond.
that existing garage studio and then it says proposed second dwelling, is that an existing garage studio? Or is
Yes.
Okay.
It is outside the 100.
Yeah, I was just wondering
I know, I was
why.
wondering, I was just looking at it too.
That's, if I could, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. That's an existing garage studio, existing. They just recently had a change from a studio to a second dwelling.
Okay.
So the structure is still the structure, it's just that it
Perfect.
went from a studio to a second dwelling.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
What you always...
That was a good question. I didn't know the answer. Opposed?
And I was like,
I didn't include it.
Any questions? Any questions from the public? No? Jeff, we have everything we need?
We do.
We're all ready to close? You'd like to close? We have a motion?
Move to close.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Nantucket Sunset Realty Trust, 10 Sheep Pond Road.
These guys is in order.
Yes.
Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering, representing the applicants. We have an existing house 52 feet from the current top of the coastal bank that we would like to move 275 feet away from the coastal bank. It's going to have its new access from Sheep Pond Road to the west. That was located, I forget how many years back, but in the area where the house is will obviously be filled in, loam and seeded. The existing driveway will be abandoned. At the edge of the existing lawn, which will be the limit of work, we're proposing erosion control and the biodegradable Filtrex SOX type system, rather than silt fence that would blow all over the place out there. So existing septic system is pretty far outside the 100-foot buffer. They obviously planned ahead when they installed that. I think that's it.
So is that the old house just gonna be lawn, or are you gonna try and put something that's actually gonna stabilize something like beach grass?
I was just going to be loamed and seeded and allowed to grow back natural. We haven't specified any particular seed, but if there's any conservation planting mix or anything like that that you want to see, then that's fine.
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't know how, it's probably not long to this world, so a conservation mix would be a...
Right, something that's low
Yeah,
maintenance
yeah,
that might help
just Vestia.
stabilize.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Going to move the septic to the other side of the house at a later date, too. Just curious.
The septic is already existing.
No, I'm just saying at a later date, like, so say, do you have room for more longevity?
In case you have to.
Yeah, maybe my grandson will be back to move that later. I don't know. When I have a
Yeah, I
grandson,
don't know about
it might be a tight tank by then, right? I don't know.
Right, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And then the 2 wells.
Yeah, so the well that's out front is a new well that they're gonna use. I think the existing well they're using right now is actually under the deck. So I think they did it all at the same time, the septic and the well. That well has been there for a while. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, any questions from the public on this one? Okay. No other questions from the commission? Jeff, we have everything you need to close on this one?
We do.
Ready to close?
yes.
Can I have a
Motion to close?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
I didn't mention, we did get the natural heritage letter back on that, so.
We do have good ones. Okay, 102 Winnet Road Nominee Trust.
Mr.
102.
Chairman, I am going to recuse myself on
Okay.
this one, please.
Yep.
I just don't want. Again, Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering. The purpose of this is to relocate the current driveway that is on the property to the north. They have an easement for the driveway. Both parties would prefer to not have to utilize that easement for this property to have its own driveway, so they're doing sort of a swap. They're going to gain a piece of land from the neighbor in order to bring the driveway on their own property. The existing gravel driveway that's there right now is a common driveway that would serve another property toward the back. And this proposed driveway is 25 feet minimum from the wetland area on the south side of that existing common driveway. We're showing a silt fence on the south side of the driveway to control any erosion during the construction of that. It does go uphill from the existing driveway to the house. There will be about a 45-foot wide limit of work to get the driveway through and do some grading for the side slopes on the driveway.
Is construction utilizing this existing driveway?
To construct a new driveway?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just-
That's, yeah.
Wondering if there should be silt fence because this driveway is so close to the other wetland to protect from construction,
Yeah.
trucks getting silt and all that stuff in there and going in.
Everything flows toward that, sort of directly to the wetland to the south. And it looks like it's probably about, there's not a dimension on here, but it looks like it's about 100 feet from that wetland flag 18 on that other driveway. maybe about 85. If you want, I mean, I could see putting some around that corner, just,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I don't think you'd get anything much further down than that.
Yeah, I just don't know what it's gonna take to construct and if they're gonna be trying to park vehicle, like what
Right.
sort of hardscaping, landscaping, truck action will be going there.
right, I mean,
People
also
like
just
to park on the
runoff,
sides of things and,
plus the runoff coming down the new
yeah.
driveway.
It's like there's some,
Going up grade, is it going up or down?
Yeah, we
It's going up
could,
grade.
there's a culvert right there. Maybe if we ran the silt fence from that culvert up to flag 18 and then sort of hooked it around a little bit.
Well,
That seems-
also this area, is this?
Yeah, this is silt
That's
fence
getting
right
silt
here.
fence there,
Right.
right, so the silt
Right.
fence access here, so this is good.
I mean, that's what we were anticipating. If
Yeah.
there was going to be any erosion, it would be coming in that direction. But it does flow downhill there too, so, if you wanted something right here, that wouldn't be a problem.
definitely offers some more protection.
Yeah, that's-
Simple enough. Thoughts, questions? Okay.
To make it clear, do you want to just say in the conditions, silt fence along between wetland flag 17 and say 19, something like that? So,
Yeah.
just so we can tell them exactly where it should go.
Up here.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then this, I mean, you're saying it flows down this direction. I just don't know what sort of construction, vehicles, et cetera, will be there. And since the driveway right alongside.
I mean, I'm sure they'll have an excavator in there to pull out the stumps and load the 10-wheelers, so I imagine it would probably be a week's worth of work to go in there and cut it in, so.
I mean, what do you guys
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I mean, well, the 25 is like right,
Because here we're a wetland.
yeah, I mean, we're inside, we're in the wetland.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see that it would be a big deal to bring us, both sides of the road to that 17,
Yeah,
personally.
so this is gonna go to the,
Yeah.
this one's gonna extend and then this one's gonna come like that, that's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be right at the edge of the road anyway, so that wouldn't be a big deal.
Okay, any questions from the public on this one? Okay, seeing not, Jeff, we have everything we need?
We do.
Ready to close?
Yes.
Have a motion?
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, the commissioner should include accusing himself. 37 Starbuck LLC, 37 Starbuck Road.
Thank you for the applicant, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. The applicant being the property owner, 37 Starbuck LLC. This is a property located out on the northerly end of Starbuck Road. The butter to the north is essentially what used to be Nantucket Conservation Land Trust property is now the open ocean. The property itself was 3 lots. It's essentially a combination of 3 lots that were approved in the original subdivision of the Starbuck Road area. So you essentially have 3 separate parcels. There was a condition at the time the lot was purchased that the 3 lots would always be considered as one parcel for the purposes of zoning, and that's how the property has acted since the time it was subdivided and initially purchased. The home itself is a smaller 1-story, essentially actually has a full basement, 1-story dwelling that was constructed early 70s. It is a pre-78 structure, although we're not looking to do anything with regard to the pre-78 component of the act. We're simply looking to take the existing structure, pick it up, and then move it further away from the eroding bank. There are two areas shown on the site plan that you have. First is a 70 by 45 relocated dwelling envelope. That is the location which we are proposing to move the structure. There is also another envelope, 24 by 24, a smaller dwelling envelope that is shown on the plan. Both of those are actually, at the present time, out of Concom jurisdiction. We've set there is no 50-foot no-build. We're calling it a 100-foot no-build in this area because of the erosion rate in this particular area. It triggers the jump from the 50 to the 100. So you'll see on the plan itself, there's a darker line here, which is actually what we're calling the 100-foot no-build setback. And then there's a coastal dune along the southerly portion of the property in which we're maintaining the 100-foot dune setback here. So once this structure is relocated, both the relocated structure and this proposed structure here are completely they're outside the 100-foot jurisdiction. The area is not mapped under the Mass Endangered Species Act, and the septic system that is out there now is in an upland area. We have left room in this particular scenario here where the septic system, at some point, if it does become close to being compromised, will be relocated also outside the 100-foot setback. The site, when it was originally designed, water was not in Starbuck Road, so there's an existing well here that limited where the septic could go. What we would do is we'd abandon that well, connect the site to town water, and then move the system out of Concom jurisdiction. So, for all practical purposes, the application before you is essentially work within your jurisdiction to take the existing structure and move it out of the eroding coastal bank. And the location that it would be going essentially would be outside of Concom jurisdiction. The applicant has asked, right now, I'd say that properly from the edge of the deck to the face of that eroding bank is probably about 15 feet or so right now. I've been on this site, I've got records on this site that goes back to 2011, and it's about 90 feet or so that bank has retreated since 2011 if we were out there today. So when we look at it on an average per year, that's 13 feet a year approximately. We know that's not what happens. One big storm this year took out 30, the nor'easters that we had over this past winter, they took out about 30 feet one shot at one point. So that's what we're asking for. We do have our DEP file number. We do not need any authorization under the Mass Endangered Species Act. We have actually incorporated, I did put in there, Jeff, too, a note about we would, when the time comes to actually take the building, pick it up and move it, we were looking to do maybe some sacrificial sand at the base of that slope right now, of where the toe of the slope is now, just for the construction purposes, of maybe at least trying to stabilize that as we're moving the structure out. And I did add that into the request and the order. The area itself would be, loamed, seeded, left to revegetate, and then everything would be moved up out of the way. It's an interesting area for what happens out here. I mean, this area, because of where Long Pond, where the wash in Long Pond is, this property seems to take you may get no erosion up the road, no erosion on the other side, and we kind of take the hit because of the regime of where Long Pond is coming in. I mean, this is a 1975 photo. I mean, this was the dwelling right there. That's it in 1975. And then you can there was still wash on the Long Pond, but it's just dramatically different now than what's up in there. So, be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Foundation that's just going to be, is there any kind of block or any kind of foundation on this thing?
And right now,
Yeah.
It is a block foundation, but it's a full foundation. It's actually it is a full foundation in there,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a block foundation full. Yeah, there's a full basement in that structure.
In the pictures, you can see windows.
Yeah, there's a full. It's
Yeah.
It looks like from the road, it looks like just a one-story ranch, but you have that lower level.
The way the grade fits
Yeah.
The grade goes.
Yeah.
So is that all going to get demoed and removed and then filled into that hole?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't. Everything will be removed off the site, and then we'll just fill it with clean fill.
Yeah.
Same thing that they did. I mean, this is the same shoreline that was retreating on the Jacobs house that was next door. We just took everything off. That one was actually wasn't even, that had like a small crawl space.
Right.
But we took everything out on that one, including all the septic components and everything else, so that all came out.
How much sacrificial sand do you think you'd be using? Because I don't really think of that as like a bank stable.
Oh, no, it wouldn't have been, well, I mean, if you look at the way that area works out there, and like if I go up to here, I can go on the backside of what was the Jacobs property, I can go and just step down onto the beach right now.
Right.
Whereas if I come to here, it's like a straight cut, you know, in worst case, it's been as high as 15 feet. It's not that way now, but the sand just kind of builds up. So we're just at that toe, because what's happening here is now is, even though we're not seeing the erosion and the storms, everything is just falling off the top. The
Right,
bank
it's
is
like
coming
under-
down. It's just undermining and coming down, that's
So
all.
you're just gonna dump some
It's
sand?
just on that low side, just to try to at least, really it's eroding now, but it's just coming off the top. But if you walk 5 feet up or 10 feet up the beach, I can step from the beach onto that other parcel, you know. But at one point, during the beginning of this year, I've got pictures of me standing here. It's probably a 15-foot cut the entire way from here all the way down towards Nantucket Beach. I mean, it was, you know, but now the sand's back and it's built back up. That's all we're looking for, just in that one area, at least when we start bringing the machinery in, to lift the house and then move it and take it out. And that may change. We could get a storm that dumps a load of sand there, and I can step down again, and it's, you know, I just, so.
Other questions? Questions from the public? Everything we need? Would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Move to close.
Second.
All in favor?
There you go.
11 Meadow Lane LLC. Having me all
So
lane.
I'm gonna grab my stuff. The existing conditions of what is out there right now. I got you, Jeff, that's fine. So again, for the applicant, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, on behalf of the applicant and owner, 11 Meadow Lane LLC. This is a notice of intent filing for work within the 100-foot buffer zone. This is a piece of property that's located within an existing residentially developed area on Meadow Lane. The existing topography plan that you see here is what exists out there today. It is presently an existing single-family home with a driveway serviced by public water and public sewer. The intent here, the property has been subdivided into two lots within the R20 zoning district, and the intent here is to raise or remove that existing dwelling and then develop the lots in a new program. So the lot that you have before you is lot 6B, I believe, on the existing plan that you have there. The wetland itself is a bordering vegetated wetland located essentially at the rear property line of the lot. You have a 25-foot buffer, a 50-foot buffer, and then the 100-foot buffer zone, which comes into the subject parcel. The majority of the work is outside of jurisdiction. It's outside the 100, but there is a small corner of the pool edge that's in the 100-foot buffer, and then you'll see there's a second dwelling or guest house that would be completely within the 50-foot buffer. There is no change in the area between the 25 and 50 with regard to vegetation. It's simply, and all the fencing and everything else is outside of the 50. It would be a single-family home, pool, and then a guest house with a driveway coming in off of Meadow Lane. Again, the property is serviced by public water and public sewer and would continue to be so under this scenario. I just went out last week actually and did test pits in the guest house location and a test house in the pool location. We hit groundwater last week at approximately about 10 feet down. I think that's shallow, probably, or that's low for this area based on the material we had. It was all a fairly good sand. I did apply for a waiver with regard to the 2-foot groundwater separation, and then actually realized kind of after the fact that the pool itself is actually outside the 100. So I don't know if it really even is applicable. And the pool is only going to be a 7-foot shallow depth, and I've been told now that the guest house is actually not going to be a full foundation. And I was borderline with whether or not I was meeting the 2-foot groundwater separation, so I did apply for it. But quite honestly, the groundwater separation waiver, I don't think is actually even necessary at this point. Number one, the pool's outside its jurisdiction. The pool is actually only a 7-foot depth, and there's not going to be a full foundation on the guest house. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. There are site photos so you get a sense of how the lot, it is basically a somewhat vegetated lawn area right now, but happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So are you gonna take the waiver off then?
I think I'm going to take the waiver. The pool is not even in
It doesn't,
I see.
he's requesting a waiver for something that's non-jurisdictional.
Yeah, understood.
So it's-
Yeah.
Except, yeah, there's really nothing, I see there's nothing with
Yeah.
the pool, but is there anything that you would need a waiver for any work in here? Not really, right?
No, because that's only going to be if it's a half, even if it's a crawl, I'm going to have a 4-foot, I got to have a 4-foot wall, a minimum with my footing, I'm still going to be 2 feet above, 2
I
feet
think
above the
it's just-
groundwater.
I think it's better if there is no waiver granted if it's not needed. That's it.
Well, I know, I don't want to jump ahead, but I know on the draft order I didn't include one
Yeah.
because I didn't feel that it was applicable.
Yeah. And quite honestly, when I was looking at it today, I'm going, why did I ask for a waiver? I'm not even, the house was outside, and I was more concerned with the foundation system for the house than I was about that. It was the house and the pool. And then when I got looking, I was thinking, geez, I'm outside the 100. I don't know if I really even have to. So I'd withdraw the waiver request.
Well, the crawl space helps.
In the crawl space. Oh, yeah, that's right. The crawl space would have made a difference if it didn't have a crawl on the backside. So.
Is there a siltation fence proposed?
I think I might have written it into it being on the 50-foot buffer as part of the, I don't know if it's on my plan, but I think it's in the write-up about silt fence erosion control will be installed along the limit of work as directed by the site engineer, which in this case, I would define it as the 50-foot buffer, as the 50-foot buffer zone.
What exists between the wetland and the 50? Is there lawn or?
It's not really a manicured lawn. I mean, there is a mowed area. There's vegetation back there. I think there are pictures, if they have any pictures going on that backside.
Yeah, it looks as though it's mowed right up to the wetland.
No, I don't, well, it doesn't go back that far, but there is a space there. The wetland's more, it's really a ditch is what it is. It's a drainage channel that runs, that's really the edge of the drainage. It's really the edge of the drainage channel. That runs down all Mayhew, down along that whole backside. Yeah, so here's the backside. You can kind of see the back. So the wetland is the wetland is in the trees there. Okay. But again, that wetland is actually, it's the edge of the ditch or the bank that goes down there. Yeah. It's not a vegetated wetland in the form of it's a meadow or anything like that.
So will it be lawn from the 50 to the 25?
No, this is, our limit of work stops at the 50. Yeah, the program stops at the 50. The grass and the fencing all stops at the pool fencing. Backside is left as it is now. Yeah.
Other questions?
So you'd be happy if we actually added that as a condition, that it would be left the way that it is now?
Between the 50, the wetland, if you so choose, that's it. That's not what the plan is, to develop right up to the 50 as shown on the plan. Yep. And there's no fencing or gates or anything. I mean, that's how it was, so.
Yeah, because this screams like landscapers dumping debris behind the privet hedge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is one of those infinity pools, right? So there's no fence around it?
It is an infinity pool, but they do have a fence. There is a
There's a
fence.
fence in
There
there?
is a fence, but it's outside the 50,
Okay, I
yes.
wasn't sure.
Yeah, there is a fence.
There is a fence in there, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the public on this one? No more questions from the commission? You're looking to close on this?
Yes, we do.
Would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Very good. Okay. Kimberly Henry, 59 Swan Road.
Okay, thank you again, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the property owner and applicant Kimberly Henry. Property is located at 59 Squam Road. It is an existing developed lot which contains an existing 1.5-story dwelling with an existing garage / office located essentially at the front portion of the lot, which is on Squam Road. The lot goes from Squam Road all the way to the ocean. The area in question is an isolated vegetated wetland that is located in essentially a field area, if you will, on the central portion of the lot in this vicinity here. Behind that, or ocean side, there's also another vegetated wetland. You have a coastal dune, you have the ocean, and so forth. But all the work itself is within the 100-foot of the isolated wetland depicted in the center of the lot. The area in question was previously defined and established under an RDA some years ago. We went out, we reflagged that area again, had David Haynes go back out to confirm that, in fact, the flagging for that area was still valid. He did that. The area is mapped under the Mass Endangered Species Act. We did previously have a no-take for the construction of the existing dwelling and the garage. Those two areas, when they were constructed, did not require a notice of intent because the work at that time was outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So you'll see right now we're proposing a dwelling centrally located in the site, a proposed pool, all occurring, the house is occurring on the further edge to the Squam Road side of the 100-foot buffer zone. No work is proposed between the 25, no work in the 25-foot no disturb, and we do have the pool fencing located outside of the 50-foot no build. No need for groundwater separation waiver. The groundwater depth here is deep enough where there'll be no effect on either the pool or the dwelling itself. We have received a email from NHESP with regard to no concerns or no take on the particular property, and happy to answer any questions that you may have. You can see by the aerials, the site is somewhat vegetated with a series of paths and mowing. It's been historically treated the same way. That area, that's basically been the same way since we've been involved in the development of it. And again, NHESP had no issues originally and no issues with what we are proposing here. And be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The only area right now that actually is not open and developed is you can see actually the path that cuts through where the pool is going, small portion of the house. So there is a stand of vegetation within that area that would be altered. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Would be utilizing the existing septic system, which is, again, outside of Concom jurisdiction. It's located at Squam Road and would just be expanding it out to accommodate the additional bedrooms that would occur when we build the structure. So basically what you'd have on the site would be a primary dwelling and a secondary dwelling, and you'd continue to have the garage / office act as it does now, and it'd just be relocating the driveway configuration on the subject property.
All lighting away from the wetland.
Be happy to, if that's a condition, I don't have a lighting or a full landscape plan yet, but that's that would be a condition that would, you know, if you want to apply it, that's fine with me. The wetland itself is a small pocket. Jeff can kind of, it's basically a small isolated wetland within the middle of the kind of the mowed field area, if you will. And there's a few of them that occur on this property. The family owns, there's 3 lots in a row, all controlled by the Henrys. This is a vacant lot. One of the children, I think this is the daughter, and I think the parents live at the Northley property. And they all have a similar look to them. They've got these isolated wetland pockets kind of in the middle of them, in what, you know, these meadows.
So is that elevation 33 going to carry to the back? So we have elevation 33. I mean, maybe this is going to change entirely as far as the elevations go when this gets built. But see an elevation 33 at the back side of the proposed shell court. So
Yeah, no, I've got it up to 30, so the first floor is at 38 then. So if you look at right here, so the first floor, it mimics what, so this house is at 38.
Yeah.
This would be 38, and then the grade would just tail off on the back side of the house.
okay, so that's going to be 38 dropping down to 29, if that's right. So that's going to be a pretty significant slope in the back. If this doesn't get or continue to have some sort of good vegetative buffer in here, it's going to be a funnel right down to the. I think we need to make sure that there is some significant erosion control measures along this.
Permanent you're talking about, not just
Well, I
during
mean,
construction, but.
For sure during construction,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
maybe something a little more permanent
Okay.
too. I'd say there should be a robust vegetative buffer there, especially if that's getting holding 38 at the back.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I'd be happy to submit a more detailed grading and landscape plan as part of the order conditions that, you know, that we submit a complete, once that's developed, a complete grading and landscape
Yeah.
plan for that backside with some type of buffer on that backside of on the wetland there. Okay.
I mean, maybe something for the roof runoff too.
Okay. Yeah, I've got test pits. I've tested in the front area up in here too, for the purposes of, I was potentially looking at the area for septic or maybe reserve, but I've got sufficient area up there. The front area could be a recharge areas up in that area. The material is there and there's no groundwater issue. And it probably may not be a bad issue for the pool too, to actually provide an area for the pool discharge also up in that. And that would actually be outside of your jurisdiction.
Reserve area?
For sure.
Yeah, yeah, the reserve area is all outside the 100, yeah, yeah.
So it may be a good spot for the bottom of that slope to consider some sort of swale at the
Yeah.
bottom. So everything that runs off gets caught at some point and then goes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how do you want to handle that? Paul, do you want to come back with a grading plan on that, or is that, what do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think it would be good to see a grading plan and landscape
Yeah,
plan.
it'd be good to see some details on that end.
I have no problem doing it. I mean, like I said, I think if we can do it as a condition and come back with that it needs to be approved, I mean, that way I can move forward on my other permitting end with the project. But that's up to the commission. Like I said, I can, you know, make it, if it's a condition of the notice of intent that a detailed grading plan will be provided, you know, or you want to see it before you issue the order, that's up to you, however you'd like to do it.
Yeah, I think we should see it before.
You want to see it before? Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Okay.
I think it's the only issue I can see. But any other issues? Any other questions?
I mean, we're only 2 weeks. It's another 2 weeks, so.
Any comments from the public on this one? Okay. Yeah, happy to see that.
Okay, great.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll continue for 2 weeks. Okay, TAC 3 LLC, 26 Washington Street.
What's that? Oh.
For the applicant, Art Gasparo. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent. And before you are existing and proposed conditions plans. This project involves lifting and renovating a structure at 26 Washington Street. The order of conditions expired last year while we're in the middle of our Chapter 91 permitting process, which has taken years, and no one sort of realized it. So we're before you with the same project that you previously approved, but we need to have a current order in order to finalize the licensing process. I can go more into the project if you want to, but that's the gist of it.
This is the next to the aquarium there.
That's correct.
Yeah. How many more steps does this add from the original? How high is it off the grade now?
Oh, it'll be up there. This is a velocity zone, so it requires essentially, we've been through as well, the architects, the building review board in Boston, the architectural review board, to try to get some waivers to get it down a little bit. I don't recall the exact number of steps, but it's going to be
It'll be above
it's
11.
going to
Gotta
be
be tall.
quite high, yes,
Well, it shows 34 feet to the ridge.
to the ridge.
Yeah.
Other people deal with.
The floodwaters will be able to go under it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Clearly.
I don't mean to be
No,
facetious,
that's good.
I'll be able
Any
to
concerns
kayak
there?
under it.
Okay. Other questions?
No.
I remember this one.
Yeah,
Any questions from the public? Okay. Seeing that, Jeff, we have everything you need?
We do.
Would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Okay.
move to close.
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Went a lot faster this time.
Good luck.
Loretta Lane Nominee Trust, 3 and 5 Loretta Lane.
Now, once again, Art Gasparo for the applicant. So I'll let Jeff, or I'll take one of the plans if you'd like, Jeff. I think the colored one is probably. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent for essentially residential redevelopment in the buffer zone to isolated and bordering vegetated wetlands. And while there's a good amount of stuff on the plan, a lot of it is not jurisdictional to the commission. It is to Natural Heritage, which had previously signed off on the work within their area that's proposed, or disturbance, if you will, within that. And so we believe we were exempt from additional filing with them and have submitted that with them. The big part of the work that is within your jurisdiction is that there is an existing dwelling located within the buffer zone to this bordering vegetated wetland here, and that will be removed completely and that area restored per the landscape plan. We've got a pretty detailed plant list and planting plan that the landscape designers have developed. And then the house and residential development, for the most part, that you see will essentially all be outside of the buffer zone. The isolated vegetated wetland is back here, and the bordering vegetated wetland here. Essentially, once the structures are removed, the activities proposed within the buffer zone are limited to landscaping. And we don't have any work proposed within the 25-foot buffer zone and no structures within the 50. There is also land subject to coastal storm flowage in this area, which the current structure goes through, denoted by this line here. And again, it'll all get restored. So we do believe that it's a pretty clear net benefit type of a project in terms of increasing separation distance. We'll also be putting in a new IA septic system to serve the new construction, which will be again all completely outside of the buffer zone. With that, I'd be happy to address questions or concerns that you may have.
So the seeded meadow grass, I want to make
Yes.
sure those are all native grass species.
They listed all the seeds right here. I don't know if you can read it on that one, but so I did a full printout of this one. And I can read upside down maybe. Aztec tall fescue, creeping red fescue, and charismatic to perennial ryegrass. So they listed the seed mix. I figured you may want that.
Yeah, I missed that down there.
It's very impressive.
Well, it's it's not me, it's they've done the
I meant
landscape.
reading it upside down.
Oh.
Your reading
It wasn't the first time I
Your
looked
reading
at it.
ability's
Thanks.
And then my other plant question, anything other than black pine that could maybe go on this site?
I mean, it's not listed as invasive, and I don't want to particularly alter a design that they've come up with on the fly. So I guess if there was a real reason or concern from the environmental perspective, then I could bring that back to them, but I wouldn't want to just concede. I didn't do the design. I asked if, and the landscape architect was going to be here and had a conflict with another meeting off island. So if that was, I'd have to hold it over before I could just say, I would want to change their design. So I'd want to know to convey to them the concern. I would say that it's all outside of the 25 even as well. And it is fairly limited in scope given the size. I mean, we've got, it's this symbol right here. So, you know, overall compared to the buffer zone where they're proposed again, you know, in this area, it's all lawn right now.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is probably that they probably believe that it's fairly somewhat salt tolerant. And you've got a real exposure from the north right here across this meadow. So I think that whatever they do pick, you know, would need to be a plant like that. And so I think there's probably a lot of thought that went into the species that they did pick.
Trouble with black pine is that it spreads like crazy. It may not be listed as invasive, but it sure acts like invasive, and it's a problem plant.
Yeah, it's a tough one from a practical perspective. When you want some kind of buffer and you want some kind of screening, it's really one of the only trees that's going to do it.
In the
Red-
long haul, it's real susceptible to the beetles and
Yeah.
stuff,
Right.
and it tends to die real young. I guess that's their problem, but the big ones don't. I mean, it seeds in real readily, especially in like meadow kind of situations, and won't stay in their lot.
I mean, they'll have to manage it, I'd say. I mean, if it's, I guess I would leave it to you. I wouldn't want a project to be denied over the black pine, so I would continue it and put that to them if it's to that level of concern. I guess I would leave it to the commission. Otherwise, you know, I think from the protected interest, it's probably not to that level of a concern, I guess, to deny an overall project, but I defer to you guys.
It's a problem. It's definitely spreading borer beetles all over the place. I'd rather see a cedar or something a little bit more beneficial.
Well, I guess I would, if you want to finish all the feedback and then
Yeah,
I can take that back to them, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'll have to
Yeah, I
ask the
understand.
landscape architect about that. If there's any other concerns with the project, I'd like to hear them now, and then maybe we can either come back with a revised plan, or they can be at the next meeting to give you further justification, and we'll work on that a little bit more.
Okay. Was there any other questions about the project?
No.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Okay, so could we continue for 2 weeks?
2 weeks, and we'll see what we can get you
Yeah,
some
that'd be great.
information. Thank you.
Amended orders of conditions. Nancy Colson, 9 Harlow Lane.
One more time for the applicant, Art Gasparo. This project's been in front of you a couple of times in the past, and the portion of the work that I'm before you with has to do with the upgrade of the existing septic system. It doesn't have adequate separation distance to groundwater, and so we're an extremely confined area here. So what we're proposing is to use the Oakson drip type of a system, the Perk-Right, so it would be a pressure dosed system. And by doing that, we don't have, under their DEP approval letter, is not concerned for breakout or separation distance required to the foundation. So I'm able to get essentially a full-size Title V system in there. It is within the 100-foot and 50-foot buffer zone to the existing coastal dune. The existing leach pits, I should have left them on here, but they're directly where this system is going. We literally have no other alternative. But as you may be able to imagine, I've opened up those leach pits, I've measured down, they're probably 8 feet or so to the bottom of them, and they were dry. But we're gonna now take that from all of that depth and then bring it up and have essentially pressure tubing that's at grade or 8 inches below grade. So there's a drastic increase in separation distance to groundwater of this system. And there's no expansion in terms of bedrooms of the system. So it's essentially bringing, it's what we would consider an upgrade in maximum feasible compliance. And it's not in a nitrogen sensitive zone as well. So that's why there's not an IA component to it, but it does have the IA technology in terms of the drip line. And the drip line has very advanced filtration that happens before it gets into that, filters that are cleaned. Plus you're getting a better effluent treatment up in the higher soil zones. So I think that there's a lot of reasons that it's a net benefit, as well as not necessarily having an adverse impact on a coastal dune system.
Questions? Concerns? No? Questions from the public? Okay. Hear everything we need to close on this one?
Yes, we can close and initiate if you guys have any questions.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Both and issue the amended order.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, minor mods. Glazier, 57 Nantucket Road.
Alright, sorry, Kent couldn't be here, so. I told him I would cover. So if you guys remember, this was a permit that was for a construction of an addition. And if you remember, this was the plant that had the big controversy of the outdoor furnace that was on the back. That's the easiest way to remember that. Now that they've started construction and doing that, they've actually are applying to reduce the size of that addition on the outside. But to be in compliance, they filed a minor bond. That's really all it is.
Pretty straightforward. Any questions? Any questions from the
To
public?
issue the minor mod? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, there's none anyways. Go ahead.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
He did clarify it didn't label it as outdoor furnace this time.
Wording.
Yeah, that point of confusion.
Certificates of compliance. Gene Murphy and Dara Murphy. Foundlier, 9 Mass Ave.
This was for the installation of a tight tank on one of the Mass Ave properties. This is on the Jackson's Point side of Mass Ave. But it's installed in compliance. But I was going to say, I don't think we have any ongoing conditions for this one. No, we did not, because the conditions that were on it were related to the IA system that was originally permitted, and then they were able to switch it to a tight tank. So
Your recommendation. Any questions?
that could be an issue.
No, no questions. Okay. And what's your recommendation on this one?
That it could be issued.
Issue. Okay.
Moved issue.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Okay. Nantucket Conservation Foundation, Matasham Valley Road.
All right, so I'll take a Karen's here if there are any questions. But we're trying something a little bit new for these. So all three of these projects together, not to hear them all together, but to save me talking about the same things 3 times. All three of these were fairly large-scale invasive species management projects. One of them is obviously Matasham Valley area. The other one's the old Sconces dump site. And then the other one is the Squam farm site. So I think Ernie and Andy were on the board for some of these. The Conservation Foundation had applied to do multiple species treatments and developed kind of a species by species protocol for all of them for managing the vegetation on all of these sites. Since they were issued, all of them have now gotten to the point of expiring, and the way for them to continue doing the work under the same protocols on those sites is to issue out certificates of compliance with the ongoing conditions for their methodologies and their reporting requirements. It gives them the ability to continue, because obviously 3-year permits, or even in some of these cases a 7-year permit with permit extension, isn't usually enough
It's never enough.
to deal with the issues that they're dealing with. So when we kind of reviewed it and figured out whether or not they could be extended still, which they couldn't, they weren't looking to update methods to simply, because we had the thought at the time to put their original protocols directly into the order or reference them directly. We can put those as conditions going forward, which allows them to continue doing that, to continue managing those invasive species. So that was the plan and the compliant plan that we're going with. So that being said, we're issuing these as complete certifications with the ongoing conditions that reference those specific conditions. So I can read them off when we get to each one individually, but I don't think I missed any. Did I?
No.
That was it.
Take them all in one fell swoop then?
Do we all three?
Well, I think because they have different numbers, I think the first one for Matasham Valley would be with condition 24. The second one for Milestone Road would be condition 18. And then the last one would be back to condition 24 for Squidnet Way.
Okay, well, maybe we just do them individually.
You could just say moved as recommended.
Whatever.
Okay, move is recommended.
As recommended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All
So-
passed unanimously.
This works because of that court decision that we had on that coastal engineering structure on the Cape, where the judge was very clear that ongoing conditions on certificates of compliance are still binding. And if you don't reference them specifically on the certificate of compliance, they're not required to do them. But if you reference them, they're still able to do them. So this is one for these projects that are never ending for them.
Right.
It gives them the opportunity. Now, if they want to change, if they wanted to say, add in an herbicide treatment, or if a new species showed up that required a new method, they'd have to apply new for that. But as long as it's like,
Same process.
we're treating with clip and drip, we're treating Japanese knotweed, they can treat their Japanese knotweed for perpetuity as long as they stay in compliance with the reporting requirements. So
Perpetuity's a long time.
hopefully we're all,
I hope it's not that long.
Unfortunately, yeah.
depends how long your knotweed wants to hang out, you know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say really quickly, the Squidnet Way one for Squam Farm is the protocol that we kind of handed out like candy for a long time for how to treat invasive species. We still hand it out for the methods that they were recommending. So, it was good. All right, sorry.
Okay. Hollover LLC, 165 Walwinet Road.
All right, 165 Walnut Road, this was for the construction of a little ramp on an existing boardwalk, the wooden ramp that was there. And it is also constructed compliance. And we have a recommendation for existing condition 22 to carry forward, and just to remember what that is. Condition 22
Photographs should
is
be
the
provided.
photographs. Yep. So they still have to provide us photographs of it, make sure there's not any impact, but we're recommending it with that condition.
Okay, move to issue.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Glebe, Thompson and Maria G. Thompson, 1A Crow's Nest Way.
Yes, they are looking to just invalidate that order of condition. They did not do the work and aren't planning on it.
Someone like to make a motion to,
Yeah, move to invalidate the order.
we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one passes unanimously. Gordon Guns, 3, 5, 7, 11, and 15 Tristram Ave.
So this was for the repair of the stone revetments on that property, and then the sander fencing, some sand-filled tubes, and some other work in related to the bulkhead that was there. And, excuse me. And the work was done in compliance. I do have a typo, but we are recommending that that get issued, but with conditions 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. All ongoing. I can read all those if you would like, but most of it relates to monitoring of the structures going forward, requirements for nourishment, storm reporting, and then obviously as those things are repaired and maintained, that they maintain doing the distinguishing markings on all of them and have all those requirements for pickup on the beach and all that fun stuff.
Move to issue with ongoing conditions 19 through 28.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Cronin, 88 Quidnet Road.
That was just there. I just totally spacing out. Jeff, you want to talk about it? Because I'm not remembering.
Sure. Jeff Michael for the project. This was a project to replace a failed septic system with a modern IA system for the capacity of the existing house. And the system was installed in 2015 and signed off by the health department, so we're hoping to close out the permit for the installation of that system.
So we did verify that with the Board of Health, that is the case. Unfortunately, that wasn't one that we had required any reporting requirements for us. So we don't have anything ongoing, but it is in and the health department has signed off on it. That's typically what we look for with these guys.
Do we have a second?
Yep, second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Orders of conditions.
One second. maximum.
I'm scared if I see a real staple.
Well, there's a lot on there today. The stapler only handles like 3 to 4 sheets. So even by doing double-sided, I couldn't make it today. I tried, and it told me no. I got the nasty beat. I had to go hit that staple for it.
I got 3 in this one.
So if you guys don't remember, for the first instance here, announced it, we closed the pest house pond application last time.
Very good.
Everyone's got a share. So the pest house pond application was the algicide, aluminum sulfate, Phragmites management, and then my notes from last time, we wanted to have the Phragmites treatment be clip and drip, which everyone seemed to be okay with, and then we wanted some monitoring requirements that were in. The one thing I left out that's been talked about was how we wanted to regulate. I have that the pipe be closed for at least 48 hours post any treatment, which is what we had talked about before. If we wanted to have the other order has some boundaries on the pipe where they have to submit that it's going to be opened, and some of the criteria for that. If you wanted to add any additional criteria, you certainly could. I will say if you guys have any questions about what that is, Karen's still here and I'd be able to answer for clarity purposes, but that other order related to the pipe a bit more as far as it goes. So I will say they are actively monitoring the level of that pond.
Is there a condition about the algicide in here? Wasn't there an algicide they were gonna put in there, some kind of a copper or something?
Yeah, so there's a number 20, the quantity and specific type of any chemical treatment will be reported in writing to the commission on an annual basis. Any chemical treatment shall be applied by a licensed applicator. And then there's a 23 that goes with that any time that they are going to apply, they need to give us 48 hours notice that they're gonna apply. I can't imagine that it's gonna sneak up that fast, but they're gonna make up and go. Because that way we know, and I imagine at that point, that any notification to the board of we're going to apply will specifically have another requirements for application of those things where they have to provide who's putting it down and what they're putting down and that kind of information. And they'll also have to provide, if they have to close the pipe to do it, that they're gonna have to close the pipe. So we're gonna have lots of notice of what's going on out on that pond. Or reopening the pipe for that matter, if they're gonna do that, they can go through.
Typical reporting requirements?
Yeah, they actually had a little bit more detailed reporting requirements, a monitoring protocol in their protocol that they sent in. Typically in situations like this, instead of me trying to re-encapsulate that into ours, we'll just attach their whole narrative into the permit. So that way when it gets recorded, the 8 pages of this is what we're going to be doing, this is what we're reporting, and this is how we're doing it. And there's nice figures that go with it sometimes, go right into the permit. So if we look for it 3 years from now and none of us are here, someone else is working or doing it, everyone knows exactly what was supposed to be going on. I will also say that NCF is definitely one of our better reporters as far as monitoring conditions go.
Move to approve as drafted.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Good luck. I think we're all very interested to see how it goes.
We need our little mini Florida coastline happening out
We have no manatees today.
there with other things that we do.
Nantucket Land Council, Nantucket Harbor.
Okay, so this was the Eel Grounds project. I'll be honest, I really couldn't think of a lot. I mean, it seemed like a pretty straightforward project and the protocol. Again, this is one that will probably attach the protocols that they submitted into the order. If they're, they're only 3 or 4 pages long, just to have it kind of cemented in there. Oh, this one does have some weird waivers that we don't issue very often. Sorry, I just wanted to touch on this today. So the first one is that no activity shall be permitted that alters existing vegetation within 25 feet of verified rare significant species habitat. So all of the harbor is mapped as rare significant species habitat. And this is altering vegetation, so it technically requires a waiver, even though you're just moving it from one spot to the other one. And then this last one is kind of a proactive one. It's that no project shall obstruct the ability of the public to gather shellfish recreationally or the ability of commercial fishermen to harvest the shellfish. So the Land Council is going to be asking, and our shellfish biologists are supportive of designating this area with buoys as a habitat-sensitive area, and under the Nantucket shellfish regulations, habitat-sensitive areas can be closed to shellfishing, just to make sure that it gets a hold of it and when it gets marked off. But that would essentially be in conflict with our regulations. So when they submitted the project, we thought it was best to ask for that waiver in advance. But I think everyone kind of is in agreement that if you're going to transplant eelgrass and hope that it takes, you don't want people mucking through it as much as possible for at least a year or so and kind of evaluate it. And it's not an area that is going to make or break commercial scalloping by any means. I mean, it's a pretty small space. It's like an acre in size for the whole harbor. And it's an area that doesn't have any eelgrass now, so there's probably not very many scallops to begin with. So I don't think we had any issue with that. But we don't see those as performance standards that come up very often.
So with condition 19, with the yearly report, can we predicate that that's both going to be written and verbal, as I'd be really interested to hear, rather than just reading about it, a presentation?
How about I'll put the applicant shall present.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Really hoping for success here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been trying for projects like this to
Yeah.
try to make sure that it's something that's here, and for some of the larger projects to make sure that it's part of what's here, so if you guys have questions, we can ask, especially for, I mean, that's kind of the intent on the previous projects that they would be in to present it, and then
Right.
this one, and then obviously some of the larger erosion control projects as well. We haven't had any really big, large-scale habitat modifications in the inland parts. I'm sure at some point we'll see one.
I wonder how the oyster beds are doing.
They'll be in soon enough.
Yeah.
So they just finished construction on it in June, so this fall they owe us a report. Leah will be in to talk about it.
Great.
So move to approve as modified.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Let's see. 3 Gully Road LLC, 7 Gully Road.
I was kind of stumped. These projects that don't require waivers are pretty straightforward.
Yep.
It seems like there was a lot.
Sounds pretty straightforward there.
So move to issue and draft it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That one passes unanimously.
Old school conditions.
Julia Hunter. 97 Sankaty Road.
Full discharge is in there.
And then I've kind of combined it into one. We used to do them as separate, but I just had the draining condition, then I added that chemical treatment of the pool shall end 3 weeks prior to any draining, just as an extra. I used to do it separately, but I didn't.
It's good.
It reads nicer as one.
Yeah. Not sure this area floods all that much, but probably will now.
I think it's just, I don't know, the more we've looked into pools, and
Yeah.
David's not here anymore, so I can, going through that project on Westchester Street where there was concerns about
Yeah.
flooding and issues that were there, I just think it's a good idea. You
Yeah.
know you're gonna be draining it.
Yeah.
By the time you're draining it, there's a better than average chance that no one has been swimming in it for quite some time unless the neighbors jumped the fence and decided to go for a swim. That letting it sit for 3 weeks before you do any work on it is it really diminishes any sort of treatment that's in that. And then should something happen, something crazy, we're draining it, the hose breaks and it sprays off, or should someone decide to subvert the rule and just run the hose on the ground, at least then if they follow the 3 weeks, you're lessening your chance for any adverse impact.
People subvert the rules.
I know it's hard to believe. So, I've just been kind of including it in our standard.
No, I think it's a great idea.
It's more a question of ignoring than subverting.
Still don't want like chlorine going in your
I like
grass.
subverting. It has a ring to it.
It does. It makes it sound like subversion is,
Yeah.
premeditated. You knowingly were doing it.
Okay.
Okay, move to approve as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I will pass it.
I would also say on that one that the Hunter family are well aware of the Conservation Commission.
That's right. We've got to come crashing down on them.
If Bill breaks the rules.
Hey.
It's funny, he doesn't show up in front of us as much as he used to.
No, he's
Now that he's kind of semi-retired. Can't give him a lot of grief.
Okay, 10 Sheep Pond Road.
This was a retreat project.
Yeah, it's good.
That's a good one, but
It's a good one. Well, not for them, but for us.
So I did add a couple new ones to these, so I have just the disturbed areas, and then I added a 20 that all utilities shall be removed from the previous dwelling site. Because
Yeah,
I always feel like you go to those and you find like the random like cable or
Dangling
or
off the
electric that's
hillside.
hanging out of the bank, and you're like, ugh. And they never go away. So I think if you just say,
There's some
take them
irrigation
out.
pipe.
sprinkle those.
Oh, even the
irrigation.
Yeah,
irrigation.
Exactly.
Is this the one that has the brick basement? I mean,
It's got a full basement?
The other, I don't know about this one, the other one has.
No, this, well, no,
The
this is-
Starbuck Road, definitely.
This is the one, yeah,
Starbucks.
Starbucks is also in the basement.
Yeah. But I've been adding that in now because that way I just want
Yeah.
to be on there that we've told them to do it. So when you go back and you find the electric hanging out of the bank,
Hanging over the
you
bank.
can go, what's going on?
Get it.
well, then I guess it should say all utilities and irrigation
Sure.
Yeah.
paraphernalia, not paraphernalia, when you irrigation has.
I'll put it-
Irrigation too.
Foundation.
Oh, it's true, it looked like the
So-
whole lot.
Because they do.
Is that
It's
something
like
then,
hell. Yeah.
because I worry that people don't remove it and you don't realize it until 10 years later, that a condition like that ends up being ongoing, so that if it comes out they haven't removed them, then they have to. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause
Well, if
it's
they come
easy
in,
to,
if they
like,
come in for a
like-
cert, yeah, no, if they come in for a cert, I think you would just put that as an ongoing condition, just to have it. But I would hope that, especially in a site like this where you're moving farther,
Right.
or the other one where you're moving even farther, that when you're moving that kind of distance, that you're gonna wanna just retreat out of there completely anyways.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it's gone.
How about irrigation hardware?
Equipment,
I just put-
hardware,
I just
infrastructure.
put, or irrigation, equipment. That can be anything.
It's not a bad
The
issue.
issue is a mill.
It's amazing how much plastics under these yards.
Second,
Okay, is there a motion?
there was.
Yeah, and
I didn't even hear it, okay. And you have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, passes unanimously.
Ernie, the amendment whisperer.
Now, Andy, the deaf commissioner. Suzanne wants to get me a hearing cone.
Did you brought that? Hey?
I can do that.
You need one of those old school ones.
That's what I get.
Where it
Nice.
goes up.
Oh, yeah.
Make a violin school.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go, let's make one up.
Collar off your dog.
So Is this the one that we wanted them to extend
Yes.
the silt fence?
Yeah, I think there'd be a 19 that says, the applicant shall install, silt fencing along the existing driveway. I think it'd just be easy just to put, shall install silt fencing along the existing driveway for all areas inside the 25-foot buffer zone, and then they just have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward area to do it. I think that was the only concern.
And then that's really easy to just stake out too. Just go out where that point intersects the driveway. Just put a stake here, you put a stake here, and you tell the guy, just run the fence from here to here, and from here to here.
Yeah.
And then you put that other section in, and you should be good to go through.
So, motion on 102 Walnut Road, as amended.
Yeah, move to approve as amended.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass it unanimously.
I was recused in that.
Oh, pardon me. With the Commissioner Shampoo? Recused. Thank you.
So he might be the guy installing the silt fence.
I doubt it, but I do have some history on that property, so I figured just say so.
Well, if you are, now you know exactly where the silt is.
I'll double it up, how's that?
Cursing us.
It's like, I'm gonna have silt fence with hay bales and
I'll put it right out to
silt
50.
fence. I actually did have a guy once that called me up and asked if they were supposed to run from there. And he called me up and he goes, so I used a roll on each side and I have like 15 extra feet of fence on each side. Is it okay if I just run that out? And I was like, absolutely. It's like, go to the end. Don't worry about cutting it or leaving it wound up. I was like, feel free to install
Go in
the
circles, right there. Right there.
Never do you have to worry about installing too long.
Yeah. 37 Starbuck Road.
All right, so I would say that
Pretty straightforward.
I would.
This is one we needed to.
Yeah, they
The
have
good
the
one.
full basement.
Yeah, this is the full basement.
And
And
should
also,
they,
they're adding sand.
right, if they
Right,
need to do sacrificial sand, they should
Right.
report.
how much was used or
Mm.
something.
Yeah, I get the impression you're just looking for stability for equipment.
Yeah, but sand doesn't really give
Yeah,
stability.
I didn't
so
really
it's-
understand that.
You know, and
I know.
I hate to say this, but they almost need to put like a temporary core roll down there,
Yeah.
or, you know, for real stability
Right.
of the toe.
Some strumps.
So,
Well, it won't be around long.
All right, so I would recommend that, I guess, that condition 20, updating that to include the irrigation equipment
Yeah.
provision. And then,
and any foundation, or is that covered under?
Yeah.
I think we'll do that as separate.
Right.
So,
And the sand, the nourishment, 21.
I think that would be 22,
22.
after 21 removing the
all right,
basement.
so I think 21, the existing foundation shall be removed and filled with clean sand.
Yep.
And then 22 would simply be that
Reporting requirement.
any sacrificial sand shall be forwarded to the commission with a volume, location, and photographs. Should say, and in approximate length of how many minutes it's out there.
Not very nice.
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
Someone like to make a motion for 37 Starbuck as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
25 minutes.
Passes unanimously.
It was blowing away as we were studying.
There's a weird spot, the way that it sits kind of in the pond and it comes in.
Yeah.
It's interesting. He actually had me come out a couple years ago because he was interested in doing a bunch of beach grass planting. that. I told them then, I was like, your time is better spent figuring out where you're gonna put your house.
Yeah.
Than worrying about putting dune grass in. I was like, it's not gonna happen.
Not strong enough.
Yeah.
Oh, 11 Meadow Lane LLC. 11 Meadow Lane.
So I had the same pool condition on that one.
Yep.
Yeah, that last one was that. Did I sign that one on top? So one, two. We just did it on the fourth, so that's a conservation.
I'll think it's out of order, so.
Oh, wait a minute. Nantucket Sunset.
That's 10 Sheep Pond. Which one are you looking for?
You're
Looking for
looking
one
for
of those.
1 or 2 low in it.
Sorry.
That's right, Michael.
Just crossing out.
This is the one with
Nice,
the,
right, McHugh.
yeah, this is the one with the perfect little curve around.
Did you want to add condition 20 that the area outside of the pool fence or the
Nothing
area?
changes.
No.
No disturb.
Put,
No changes.
well, we'll almost put 20, no work is permitted inside the 50-foot setback.
Or no work or alteration. Or is, yeah.
I like that one.
It's a very legalese term. Alteration. And then it's from there. I mean, it's something certainly they could come back and try to amend or
Yeah,
modify or
right.
do what they wanted to, but that's free or something.
Okay, we'll issue as.
Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. TAC 3 LLC, 26 Washington.
Oh, just real quickly before we pass it, were you guys interested in a positive order for Henry for next time? I know it's in your packet already, if they bring back that grading design. Something to at least look at.
Oh, with the,
Yeah.
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 Sorry, I'm just trying to move the agendas forward, knowing what seeks our time. Looking at the roads,
Pretty straightforward.
weeks ago, since I saw the selections agenda, and we're like, quick. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this is the exact same order that we permitted last time. I honestly just changed the dates.
Yeah. It's okay.
I didn't have any.
Well, at least you're honest, Jeff.
Didn't have any clever changes or anything going on. I can just tell you though, the last time we had this stored outside the 50-foot setback for the construction materials, there was a significant amount of talk about where construction materials were gonna be stored on this site because it's kind of cramped.
There was no space.
Nowhere.
That was a major talking point, so
Yeah.
I left it in there.
Okay, so moved issue is drafted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I hope you finish your chapter 91 process.
Passes unanimously.
I said good luck to him.
It wasn't us.
So,
Okay, extensions of orders of conditions.
oh, and real quick before you get those up, did you also want a positive order for Loretta after Art gets back to us with his landscaping changes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the only question was really if they were gonna switch over.
So three.
We like those black pines.
We got a pile number 2.
Boom, boom.
We're cruising.
Well, I told
It's a
Joanne and I
good-
were
it's a
talking,
good
we're like,
grouping.
it's like everyone knew that SBGF was incoming, so everyone got like filed 4 weeks ago. Well, if it could happen, everyone get their filings in. Yeah. We said a ton of them.
This is a pretty straightforward filing. Extension of orders of conditions, Edward G. Bayless, 52 Eel Point.
Yes, these are
Two and lot one.
They're two properties that are kind of linked. One of them was a local filing only, and not under the state. But they have started work on both of them, but they are not going to be complete by the 10th of next month. So they are seeking their 3 one-year extensions to finish their work on both of those.
Approve them both at the same time. Someone like to make a motion? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Approval of minutes. Everyone read the minutes? What's happening?
Very good job.
Approved by unanimous consent. Monitoring reports.
Right, so we asked Art to come in. Again, this is one of the ones that we typically have that get kind of presented to us. This is the Pocono Neighbors Project. This is the larger Wilkinson array on Pocono.
Thank you. So for the applicants and property owners, Art Gasparo, I've put the report together for you to try to address the conditions with respect to, first off, I think one of the main things, the two things I think to focus on are the top of bank location, which on the plans I've compared last year's to this year's with a dashed line, and then the volume of sand added. With respect to the top of the bank, in the areas of the project where the fiber rolls are installed, we essentially didn't see any meaningful top of bank. You might see some deviation in the line in that area to the order of a foot or two, which tends to be based on survey shot locations, because we're essentially connecting the dots, and it's not perfectly uniform, but there was nothing that really stood out to us. Two areas that I did want to highlight, and I know are always of concern, are at the project ends. On the far east and far west ends, we really noted no particular change. This is the second report that I've provided to you. As I noted in the first report, there were 7 owners involved with the approval. 5 of them went forward, and 2 in the middle have not yet decided to put the system in. So we do have an opening in the middle of, we have a length of the fiber roll arrays, 2 properties which are which remain essentially unprotected or unstabilized with the rolls, and then another segment of the rolls. And for clarity, to fit them on the sheets, I've done 2 sheets which essentially meet in the middle if you were to put them side by side. With the Shapiro and McNeil properties, or the 55 Pocono Realty Trust, excuse me, properties in the middle, there was a very large boulder, glacial erratic, whatever you want to call it, that was right at the very end of one of the ends that meet that, and that had settled down. So you do see, and I show the change of the top of the bank that happened in that area to the order of 5 or 6 feet, and we would attribute that to the rock settling. And included a photo of that, and just wanted to describe, what we saw there. I do know that the Mr. and Mrs. Shapiro are here. I have met with them on site, and their property is immediately adjacent to the proprietor's road where the sand is delivered, and the sand was, piled. Extra sand, if you will, at the end, as we always do. The contractor did leave essentially a coconut fiber mat over that sand, and when I saw that and met with Shapiro's as well, I asked that be removed. The whole point of that sand at that location is not to preserve it, but for it to be essentially readily available. So that was removed. And then there was an area on the beach that didn't have vegetation on it any longer. Essentially, some of this beach has vegetation and some doesn't, and so the other property owners agreed at some expense to themselves to plant beach grass in there, and so I've identified that on the plan and shown it on the in the pictures. So that is part of, I think, an adaptive management and monitoring approach to the project, and trying to be good neighbors and understanding that I think different folks can see things a little bit differently when it comes to you know, the dynamics of the coastal environment. We don't believe that there is, you know, adverse effect as a result of the project. The volume of sand that was added was 900 cubic yards, essentially, and so that's in the report, and that's to just to cover the rolls. We have not, in terms of failure criteria that we spent a good amount of time, we have not lost any materials. There was a few spots where the lowest rolls settled a little bit, and a little bit of this. And again, the Wilkinson team has an annual maintenance contract, and that they retensioned the cables to just pull everything in, especially after this winter, considering the storms that we had. The other piece of, and then back to the projected volumes of nourishment in the application for the entire project. Again, looking at, now we do have sort of the one piece, but we had come up with a short-term, based on short-term erosion rates, looking at what I think is the better data, when you can go to, say, aerial photographs from like 98 to now, and come up with an erosion rate. We had determined 885 cubic yards. And using the CZM and going back to the 1800 stuff, the number had been 1253. So I think we're right in, sort of what had been projected. Now, the other side of that, I know a lot of the concern of the commission was not too much sand. There's a nice cobble beach out there, not impacting that. And you can see in the photos, I meant to include another photo that specifically labeled that, but I think it's very evident in most of the other photos. So if you can zoom just in a little bit, the cobble beach fully still exists. There's no, anything that we've noticed that is materially different from before the project went in, other than the vegetation is very well established and surviving on the area of the bank above the fiber roll array. So from our perspective, I think the project is meeting the performance standards, meeting the conditions, and in compliance with the order. We will continue to monitor it. I have authorization from the clients to, I went out there in the winter after the storms. We didn't meet reporting, criteria. The very first storm, there was actually no sand loss because there was so much ice in the harbor. I was a little bit surprised. I thought I was going to go out there and find something different than I did, which is always, it's good. It's good it's not always what you expect, but the ice actually held the water down, and we didn't lose the sand during that storm. But the subsequent storms did take essentially all of the sacrificial, sand cover, and then we mobilized. We did the work in April and into May of getting the sand right back there as soon as we could. The one other point, which I know has been of concern and discussion, is with respect to the sand delivery point and using the proprietor's road. I have been asked to explore the delivery of the sand through Pocomo Point. I didn't believe that was something that would meet the performance standards as well as the approved delivery point. Ultimately, that would be up to you. I think we would have to amend the order to come back to you, but it would require using off-road dump trucks to haul the sand from Pocomo Point, down the beach to the site. We have also done some additional plantings in the proprietor's road to sort of not have it be as wide of a swath. We do understand that it was a change from how it used to be, but I think that from the perspective of the commission, what we're doing is in trying to do it in certainly as sensitive of a manner as possible with the sand delivery and maintaining the project. With that, I'd be happy to address questions or concerns.
So I'm curious, the objection to using the proprietor's road was that the vehicles were too large for it, and so
Yeah, I think, and certainly the Shapiros are here, and I don't want to speak for them. I think it's whether there's additional impact as a result of that and, you know, activity within the top of the coastal bank there. I don't think there hasn't been any, you know, destabilization of the bank at that point.
Yeah, as opposed to, I mean, running dump trucks along the beach.
Or loaders with
Right.
3-yard buckets. Which
Right.
is, you know, it's a lot of trips.
A lot more.
So I understand, but I do understand the concern, but I think we're better off to bring the sand in, you know, per 18 to 20 yard dump
Right.
truck at a time.
So, were the two properties that haven't signed on so far, has there been any erosion with them at all?
Yes, I mean, there certainly is, and I think it's evident in a couple of the
Right.
photographs. Yeah, but it's, and I think it hasn't all occurred yet. I think that the bank is oversteepened in some of those areas from the lack of toe stabilization, and that you will see in further surveys, even if we don't have storms, there's likely to be, you know, some settling of the bank to its natural angle of repose. There are some fines in there. I don't think that it's going to be a full sand type of an angle. And there's some of it has vegetation on the bank still, and some of it is a little more vertical. I think, you know, the erosion is certainly not linear.
I'd say, before you guys continue, you may want to hear from
Yeah, I know.
the Shapiros as well.
Please.
So that way we can have a complete discussion and just not talk about
Yeah,
them.
please.
sitting there.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for hearing me out. I'm Robert Shapiro. We live at 57 Pocomo Road, and we were part of the original 7 applicants for this project. I believe that an overview with regard to what Art had said is that the project has protected those properties where it was installed, and I think it's done it very effectively. But as the abutter, I have suffered the consequences of that, and I brought some photos to show you that I would like to review with you. The first photo is one that we took when we arrived back in the spring, and that's when this fiber blanket was still on the surface of what I've come to call the sand delivery chute. There's another photograph of that shows the blanket. Art was nice enough to come out and review all this with me, as was Jeff, because I was very concerned when I saw the erosion that was immediately adjacent to this sand delivery area. The neighbors were also concerned when they saw what happened, and they reached forward with the contractor and agreed to plant some beach grass in the area where that had been destroyed. And although we are very appreciative of that, it is basically cosmetic, it is not really functional, and we still have a continuing functional problem. Although originally I thought that the delivery point on this proprietor's road was the appropriate way to bring sand and equipment and logs to the beach, I did not anticipate that we would have a permanent sand chute there that would be used repetitively for delivery of sand. And I don't think that the project itself is a problem. I think the project has been very beneficial to all of the neighbors who installed this, but this sand delivery point and system is a problem. And you can see that we lost, by my estimate, maybe 3 feet of the bluff. And we didn't lose any other of the bluff along the rest of our property. My beach there stayed intact. There was no other erosion. It is only immediately adjacent to the sand delivery. So I am here to ask you to consider amending the order of conditions to move the sand delivery to Pocomo Point. There is already an established roadway, if you will, down to the point. We would not be destroying any existing sand that is not already so configured. Yes, it will require bringing it along the beach. But right now, you're bringing it along the beach anyway in front of my property and my neighbor's property to get to the two ends of this project. And I believe that if we don't move this delivery point, we will continue to have further erosion every year that we have big storms like we had this past year. The first year that this was in place, the winter was very mild, and so there was really no erosion. Last year, approximately a year ago, I sent a letter to the commission. It was signed by one of my neighbors who did not participate and by myself, expressing our concern about the sand delivery. At that time, I was simply advised that it was going to be more expensive and that it would be something that probably would not be acceptable. I'm telling you that what we have now is not acceptable, and we cannot live with it the way it is.
My concern is that even with, that's not, I would think you'd still get erosion in there without the sand delivery in that point, without the protection of that lot.
Yeah, and
I've lived on that property for 40 years. Over a 40-year span of time, we've probably lost less than 8 feet of bluff, 3+ feet this 1 year. In one isolated area adjacent to the sand delivery point, not to the other extensive property.
adjacent to sand delivery and at the end of this
Right.
structure. I would be concerned to move the delivery point to Pocomo Point just because I walk that beach in the winter and the beach actually gets kind of narrow, so to actually get machines with buckets of sand for our resource areas, I would worry it would be more damaging to all of those properties. I don't know if one of maybe the private property owners would be willing to say, hey, we can do this over our own property, you know, so that you're not going through multiple other properties from Pocomo Point.
That would be delightful, but I can't imagine that happening. The sand delivery doesn't take place during the winter, it takes place during the early spring.
But then when they have to move the sand, they're using bucket loaders. Because that's basically what I witnessed this winter when they were recovering this structure, is they go from the sand delivery point and they keep bucketing left and right, right? And I think even then, I noticed it seemed that it was difficult to stay above the high tide line, like there's not much working space. So I would be concerned that it's Pocomo Point isn't.
How far is the Pocomo Point?
It's pretty far.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but exactly.
Pretty far.
Yeah.
Well,
How many loads did you bring in last time?
Well, it was 900 yards.
And then they're using a bucket loader to spread it out.
Yeah.
So the bucket loader's going back and forth for weeks.
Yeah. What does that break down to?
Yeah, I mean, you said it was like close to 5 weeks.
I
I'll
don't
tell you in
know.
a second.
Well, normally, you know, if it's a 15 cubic yard
it's like 18.
capacity,
So it's
then it'd be, you know,
I might suggest, now that we've talked about it too, is I think it would probably be worth our time to next field view, just go out and just take a look now that we have kind of the monitoring report in hand and discussed
I
it.
agree.
Yeah,
And heard these
absolutely.
things, and then see where it sits, look at the point.
The distance, look at it, yeah.
Yeah, and kind of weigh out the situation and see it, especially because this is the largest version of this, of the Wilkinson array. I know that's the patent pending name for it, I guess, is to go and for you guys to take a look directly. I know I've seen it a bunch of times, and I know they've been kind enough to invite us out, and I know Art has probably seen it more times than all of us times 100 at this point. But I think it may be good, and maybe good to help get some resolution to some of the issues with it, or see that it's maybe not an issue, or kind of make a decision after seeing it. But I think we wanted to get everyone in front of you guys to talk about it and start the discussion about ways to, I mean, I think with any project, we're always looking to find ways to improve and fine tune.
so I just want to clarify that Mr. Shapiro, so you're one of the two property owners that has not put this in place?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
55 and 57 are not protected.
Right, and so, and the delivery system is on the west side of your property there.
That's correct.
Yeah, and And so you're getting the effects of end scour from, is there any end scour, do you think, Art?
I don't, and I would like to, on the plan itself, you'll notice that the actual rolls stop on the other side of the proprietor
Right.
road. So
Right.
I will give that the blanket, I don't think was appropriate. But again, it was a, coconut fiber. It wasn't the same as like the jute netting that you see. It was more of a blanket, staked down on the sand. But I don't think that should have been there, and, asked that be removed. But essentially, for 28 feet or so from the end of the structure to the Shapiro property line, it's just a big pile of sand.
Gotcha.
And it's the chute. And they add extra sand because that's where they keep putting more.
I would point out to the commission that on each end of the project, where the rolls come to an end, there is a softening, tapering back into the adjacent bluff. And the purpose of that was trying to deal with adjacent erosion. But next to this sand chute, there is no softening. The sand chute ends, as you see on these photographs, with a hard edge.
It's the same.
And there is no softening.
Soft.
Well, he's absolutely correct, and if I may, it's because we left it expecting to be able, that the project was gonna keep going forward and be connected. So it's for a hard edge, it's
abrupt.
this way. Well, it doesn't taper, it doesn't
It's
taper back
an
in.
abrupt edge, and
there's no
there are no
return.
logs in that area. It's simply the compacted sand.
I mean, even on the end that it does have the tapering, because I know we talked about this winter, there was end scour that was repairable, but it's still.
And I think that it's very localized, but I also think that, again, as we talk about on a lot of these projects, the natural erosion continues on the adjacent banks, and it's very apparent where, the, whatever is placed for stabilization remains at a fixed point.
Right.
So the whole bank is moving back. The question is there a little bit of a scarp and then the erosion continuing back? And the only point that I really noted that was where the big rock was. So I think that was so I made it because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, there will always be it continuing to move back, but I certainly am, happy to, attend the site visit and look at it from, we understand the Shapiro's concerns, and certainly, want to make sure that sand for that width. But I do want to be clear as well that end isn't right at the property line. It's in fact on the other side of the 33-foot wide proprietor's way.
We're looking for your help, we're looking for your guidance, because we don't want to live in fear of losing another 3 to 4 feet every year as a consequence of trying to be a good neighbor. So we appreciate your consideration.
I think we all agree we have to go and take a look. There's nothing we can.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I think with these, we haven't been scheduling field viewings in advance because I think it's something where having the discussion about the issues that we're seeing with everybody and then going to take a look with that knowledge at hand is better than going out cold and trying to see it and then talk about it later. So I think, if it's all right, before everyone sits down, I think for our 8/22 agenda, we'll go out for the field viewings for that, and then we'll put this back into monitoring reports as a follow-up to have a discussion again, so we can at least close out the monitoring report. If there's action that needs to be taken, you guys can do it then. So, cool.
And we'll reach out to Mr. Shapiro accordingly after.
Yes, I will reach out to Mr. Shapiro, and we'll let him know when we'll be there. But the field viewings are typically the Monday prior to the meeting, so that would be the 20th. They start at 4, and if we do this one first, we would probably be there, depending on traffic, 4:20, 4:30. Traffic's really bad, 7 or 8. But I have all your contact information, so I can always let you know.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Very good. Okay, enforcement actions.
Thanks, Art.
I have none that are old ones, but I am, after Ian's stuff and then Ernie had that question, I'm going to be looking into the one at Sackage Pond.
Excellent, second pond.
A lot of work.
The DPW was cleaning up their site and was supposed to be maintaining the culverts that go under the road. It looks to be that they were a little overzealous. But
Right, I biked right past there this afternoon and took pictures, and my understanding was that it had gone beyond just cleaning out the culvert there. In fact, we're widening the culvert. They've also blasted right through all the vegetation there. And so
More vegetation down there.
there's a ton of vegetation down there.
Did they,
On what side?
did they
we'll
drive?
have Ian send the pictures. We'll take a look,
Yeah.
and then we will prepare the.
That sort of claim, that's actually.
Okay, hey, come on.
What side of the road are we on?
We'll send the pictures in,
Visual aids.
and
Okay.
I'll send them around,
Send them around.
and we'll go out and take a look. And if we need to issue an enforcement, we can do so at our next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
After the meeting.
So-
You're on the marsh side or the pond side?
Pond side, they blasted right through the pond side, taking all the bushes out.
Anyway, that's all gone, yeah.
And clearly, when I was, it's clear that they've gone far beyond just, clearing out the culvert.
And saving the road, yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
So, anyway.
That's our time.
So it's not a comment so much, but I'm a bit puzzled about when SPPF is coming before us to extend the existing geotube permit. Doesn't that expire in September? Isn't that the 3-year period?
Correct. So
But there's no mention of it here.
it's kind of rolled into the new application, and they could they could maintain it in compliance with the permit. It's just like getting a certificate of compliance. But it's also included in the application that the selectmen just signed, is incorporated in that stretch as well.
Can we ask for it to be treated as a separate issue? Isn't it a separate issue?
Well, it's gonna get incorporated. If the new project gets a positive order of conditions, the project that currently exists is going to be built into the length and structure. Like the existing returns will go away and be added into the structure. So they're gonna be permitting a continuous, or attempting to permit a continuous 4,000-foot structure. There's not gonna be returns and then a new section. So it's gonna be a little bit tricky to sort out, but to get to the schedule of it, again, just to refresh everyone's memory, what we're doing is similar to last time, or what we're suggesting we do, and we've kind of booked rooms to do it, but the next hearing is going to have the schedule, time, and place going forward for, I'll be fair and say we have booked space and time into 2019 if necessary at this point, because rooms are getting scarce. But I think what we're suggesting is something that we were successful with last time to some degree, and that's scheduling alternate Wednesdays from this meeting, but for like 2-hour chunks, to say, our presentation, our discussion, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Or else they go on for forever and everyone gets angry. So we're able to get the room downstairs, and I was gonna talk about this later, we're able to get the room downstairs from 3 to 5 on those days. Actually, it's looking at it.
I can't be there till 4
So,
on Wednesdays.
all right, so we can try to shift it then, if necessary, to,
I'm gonna have trouble making a 3 o'clock meeting.
okay, well, we'll regroup
I
then,
can't.
and we'll find a space. We could guarantee that space, but we'll try to go to the school then at 4. But
You
the
can
school-
make it a 4, right? Yeah.
Ashley's class.
Well, I barely make it, but I make it.
But,
We're covered in last every time.
we want to make sure we.
4's good.
The school is not booking rooms at this point until the school year starts, so that gets us really close. So I'll have to ask for a special favor from those guys and then have to arrange for filming and things. We just don't have any rooms left, so.
Who's taking over this from after Labor Day? Why are we being bumped out of here after Labor Day?
They're cutting a hole in the wall
Oh,
to tie it into the new one.
That takes precedence.
So, and then this room will ultimately end up being part of the fire station. But,
Oh.
yeah, in September, they are saying that they are gonna be removing a large section of wall here to tie it into the structure, so we have a lot of outdoor meetings inside, so.
I love September.
What's that?
I'm a month to be outside. September's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Perfect time.
we'll try to ship that, but since there were shortages, we booked the rooms, but we'll try to ship them over if 3 is not possible, so. We'll go for it. But does everyone like the idea of trying to put like an actual end time to it?
Yes.
To say like, we'll do 4 to 6, and just tell everyone up front, say, applicant, you have an hour, and then you guys can have a half hour, and the public can have a half hour, however it spells out time-wise. Or it could be longer, we could do 3 hours, or however long you guys want them to be. But we had good success with limiting, having a set end time. We'll probably run over, I don't think there's any questions to that, but I think if there's at least a little bit of a, we're going to now.
I'd say like 3 hours if we were done before 2019, but I don't think any of that's realistic.
Well, I'm wondering whether we could have it catered.
Now you're talking.
So,
Unless we'll have to top approach, maybe the culinary kids can cater for us.
Oh, that'd be fun.
so, well, if we're in the cafeteria, they can't object to us having food and drink, that's what they have to do. So we'll try to make that adjustment, but we're shooting for that first hearing to be September the 12th, to get started. So, and then we'll just be on the alternate Wednesdays from this meeting, separate.
Time off in the fall.
Any
End of my good
reports?
time.
CPC?
I've heard of them.
I am told they exist.
Nothing to report.
MPDC, nothing to report. Skeeters? Skeeters. Any other commissioner comments? The administrative staff, I think you did that already.
I have
Motion
nothing.
Good night, Art.
to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Like meetings to an end.
Night, Art. Thank you, Terry. Good job. Thank you, Ian. Good job.
You know, one of these times for Sconces Bluff, maybe I will say
It would be such an exciting surprise.
Watch the public kind of like drool.
Can you imagine if I had it brought in?
Thank you.
I'd have to like demonstrate that I had personally paid for it, or I'd get to hear about how, you know, I was wasting town funds to buy pizza for Tom. Yeah, I'm not sure it's worth that level of. What's that?
Pool money.
Yeah. We'll fund it. Just let it happen. We'll fund it.
Or I'd have to demonstrate too, like, that you guys pull money, or they'd be like, oh, the SPPF guy's probably pulling a pizza, trying to butter him up. That pizza's worth more than $50 a piece.
I was
On Nantucket, probably.
Well, you do about the slice per person, right? Wouldn't you?
Exactly.
You could get a whole pizza delivered from like Wicked. Gourmet pizzas.
No, it'd be great to have something to snack on for the first hour representing at the beginning.
They'll be sleepy for the next hour. All that bread.
Saw Ian today, I'm driving up Center Street with a
I know, it's gonna be a
truck in the
wonderful.
back.
Well, hopefully,
Tanks up at Academy Hill. So I'm
Here's the
trying to
first
keep up. You know, you get a truck with a trailer.
Yeah, Arthur.
So many people, so I actually had to stop for people trying to crisscross the.
that does remind me.
Yeah, no, I know.
Andy? Look at the I think before that first real special hearing, maybe we'll try to arrange for you and I to have a little quick sit down with George, especially before. Because I think there's going to be a lot of interesting banter about this. So, a lot of waste of time. I think there's some issues that we'll have to cover as far as however an order spells out, which at this point, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, well,
Maybe better.
I'm like we've gone through this a few times already, so.
No, well, it's
There
the
won't
one
be
thing
much
too,
difference.
we've seen it, I think there are, mentioned the other day, there are a lot of interesting questions that we're going to have to address. So when we're looking at those performance standards, we're really going to have to look, it's 4,000 feet. So it's looking at the whole 4,000 feet to make sure, like, I mean, it's just going to be a lot of like pre and post imminent danger, alternatives. Like, we're going to have to go through all of those things to go through it. And it's going to be tricky because I think that if I were presenting for the bluff, that's how I keep prefacing this, I'm probably not recording, so. The northern end and the southern end are vastly different. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. We're probably going to have to talk about gap plots, gaps, and those kinds of things that are not regulatorily defined, but are procedurally defined.
Yeah.
I'll try to help you out to make sure that
I appreciate that.
those come through.
Yeah,
But I think if
you get some bigger maps of this thing and really break down the properties or see where
If we have the screen available, I may be able to arrange just to have it up on the screen too.
Yeah.
But I think it's something, if you, George, and I kind of stay in the loop to make sure that we're covering everything, because the last thing we want to do is get to the end and all of a sudden be like, oh shit, we forgot this part. Instead be like, all right, here comes 6 more weeks.
It's going to go on for a long time.
Yeah, and I think if it's okay with you, since you're meeting as chair, you can just approve these things. I'm probably going to produce a sheet that will have like, maybe have like a sign in, just so we make sure we get people's names for the records, because we're going to have a ton of commenters.
I know.
Just to make sure we get people's names. But I'm also maybe going to put up something that just says, if you could submit your comments in writing in advance with the dates. And once with the hearings, they're set to go to like the Fridays before, and then get that up and posted for people to see, or people are going to come to the meetings. I can email them out to the groups of people. NTC and those folks that are going to come and say, please pass this to your membership.
Can you just go on the website?
Yes, well, we can,
which is going to be.
Well, it's there, but I'm thinking more like.
Confusing to even file through that.
If someone just wants to come to the meeting and say, I think it's the greatest thing ever, or I hate it. I would much rather say, instead of saying it at the meeting, please just file it in advance. And the commission will get it, and if you don't have anything to add, please sit and listen.
That's right.
Your comments are on the record, and they're part of